On 1966, a young man stumbled upon a baffling and disturbing sight in the hills of Rio de Janeiro. Two lifeless bodies lying side by side, their eyes concealed by eerie lead masks. Despite numerous theories and investigations, the truth behind the lead masks case remains elusive, buried deep in the shadows of the Rio hills. What forces led these men to their enigmatic fate, and what secrets were they trying to uncover? The mystery endures, shrouded in darkness and intrigue. Welcome back. Today, I will be peering behind the veil to explore the enigmatic lead masks case, a mysterious and decades-old case that is shrouded in mystery and has kept its secrets hidden for years. On a warm summer afternoon on August 20, 1966, a young boy was out flying his kite on the Morro de Vintém, a hill in Niterói, Rio de Janeiro, when he stumbled upon something that would soon become the talk of the town. As he ran towards the authorities, he realized he had discovered two deceased males, their lifeless bodies resting next to each other, partly covered by grass. The Morro de Vintém is known for its difficult terrain, and it took a day for the police to reach the bodies. What they found was bizarre and unsettling. Each man was dressed in a formal suit, complete with a waterproof coat, and a lead eye mask. There were no signs of a struggle or any visible injuries. Instead, it appeared as though the two men had peacefully laid down to rest, never to wake up again. Near the bodies, the police discovered an empty water bottle and a packet containing two wet towels. But the most puzzling clue was a small notebook found on one of the men. Inside were cryptic instructions that only added to the mystery of the case. The message read, 1630 be at the specified location. 1830 ingest capsules. After the effect protect metals. Await signal mask. Who were these men and why were they wearing lead masks? The police investigation led to the identification of the two men as Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana, both electronic technicians from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town to the northeast of Rio de Janeiro. Following the discovery of the two men's bodies, police tried to piece together the events leading up to their deaths. Their investigation revealed that the two men had left Campos dos Goitacazes on August 17, telling their families they needed to purchase some materials for work. They took a bus to Niterói, arriving at 2:30 p.m. Evidence shows that the waterproof coats were purchased at a shop there, along with one bottle of water from a local bar. However, upon questioning the waitress from the bar, it was discovered that Miguel was very nervous and frequently checked his watch. This was the last sighting of the two men alive. It is presumed that they went directly from the bar to the spot where they were found. The autopsy, which took place weeks later, revealed no obvious injuries, and the internal organs of the two victims were too badly decomposed for reliable testing. The coroner's office was busy at the time, and due to this delay, testing for toxic substances was never conducted. To this day, the case remains a mystery. What was the purpose of the lead masks? What happened after they ingested the capsules? And most importantly, what was the motive behind the deaths of Cruz and Viana? The circumstances surrounding their deaths may never be known, but their story continues to intrigue and mystify those who learn about it. The police were able to identify the two dead men found in Niterói as 32-year-old Manuel Pereira de Cruz and 34-year-old Miguel José Viana, both of whom were married electronics repairmen from Campos dos Goitacazes, a town about 175 miles away from Niterói. On August 17, 1966, they told their families they were going to São Paulo to buy equipment and a car. But instead, they boarded a bus to Niterói with enough cash to buy a cheap used car, around 3 million cruzeiros, which is difficult to convert due to the high inflation rate of the time. After arriving in Niterói around 2 p.m., they made several stops, including purchasing identical raincoats from a local store and a bottle of mineral water from a bar. On their bodies were receipts for the raincoats they were wearing and a receipt for the water, but most of the money was unaccounted for, as they had only a small amount left on them. When police questioned the clerk who sold him the water, she said they seemed agitated and concerned about the time, as it was getting dark and starting to rain. The two were last seen heading into the hills at around 3:15 p.m., when they hitched a ride up the hill with two unidentified men in a jeep. 3 days later, they were found dead, marking the start of the lead masks case. There are several theories surrounding the deaths of Manuel and Miguel. The first theory suggests that the men were involved in some kind of illegal or clandestine activity, possibly related to the black market trade of radioactive materials. This theory proposes that the men met someone on Vintém Hill to exchange radioactive materials, and that something went wrong, resulting in their deaths. However, this theory doesn't explain why the men were wearing lead masks, nor does it account for the capsules, towels, and jackets found at the scene. Another theory proposed by Charles Bowen, who wrote about the case in 1967 for Flying Saucer Review, is that the lead masks could have been a kind of protective gear used by the men while investigating a UFO sighting. Bowen noted that there were reports of a UFO sighting in the area around the same time that the men were on the hill. He speculated that the men may have been part of a group investigating UFOs, and that they had taken the capsules and worn the lead masks for protection during their investigation. However, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, and it is largely speculative. Bowen also proposed a theory that the men were attempting to contact extraterrestrial beings through a kind of spiritual practice known as scientific spiritualism. This theory is based on the fact that the men were known to be interested in the occult. According to Pereira de Cruz's wife, both men had dabbled in scientific spiritism and were interested in contacting alien spirits. In fact, they had tried multiple times with their friend Elcio Gomez. At one point, an electronic device the men had built together blew up in Pereira de Cruz's backyard. The three had apparently tried the device again on a beach, and claimed to have witnessed an explosion in the sky. Police, however, followed more terrestrial leads and briefly eyed Gomez as a suspect since Pereira de Cruz's wife said that he'd fought with her husband. Gomez also told them contradictory stories. The third theory is that the men were victims of foul play, possibly murdered by someone who lured them to the hill under false pretenses. This theory originates from a man called Hamilton Bezzani, who told police he'd helped rob and kill Pereira de Cruz and Viana after meeting him at a spiritualism center and luring them to Niterói. He claims an accomplice told him, "We have killed them both. We forced them, at revolver point, to take the poison." However, police were unable to find anything to back up his story. In conclusion, the deaths of Manuel and Miguel remain a mystery, with no clear explanation or theory that can fully account for all the evidence found at the scene. While each theory has its merits, none of them provides a definitive answer to the question of what happened to these two men on that fateful day on Vintém Hill. The lead masks case continues to fascinate and frustrate investigators and the public alike, and the truth behind this bizarre and tragic event may never be fully revealed. The enigmatic lead masks case remains unsolved to this day, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a sense of eerie mystery. The strange deaths of Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel José Viana, and the inexplicable lead masks found on their faces, continue to captivate the imagination of those interested in true crime and the unexplained. The case serves as a haunting reminder of the many unsolved mysteries that still exist in the world, waiting to be uncovered and explained. Please leave your comments below, and let me know what you think. Until next time.